All right, so to build a strong temple, you need to build an extremely strong foundation. The taller you choose to build your temple, the more intricate it is, the more layers and levels it has. The stronger those footings have to be. And the more research you have to do into how to use those footings within that type of soil, which type of foundation works best in clay, in rock, in dirt. And take that into account if you want a foundation to last through the centuries. And if we think of our personal lives, and not just our bodies, but our experience, our overall experience in this world, as our temple, we find that we sully that temple quite often. We pollute our own, not just with food and the crap that we consume. I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I partake in many different things I shouldn't. I probably eat too much sugar, and I probably consume too many drugs. But at the end of the day, what's important to me is that I am spiritually in control of my own emotions and my feelings. And when I say spiritual, it's not the floaty, hippy-dippy version of spirituality. It's that recognition of God within us, that truth that we all shine together, that we're all part of the same thing, that we are part of an organism. And this hasn't come to me through belief or desire to believe in something, but rather scientific analysis in my own life of what's around me. The more I've learned about nature, for example, the symbiosis between bees and flowers, fungi and trees, and this interconnected web that we're only beginning to barely understand, the different pheromones that are emitted and chemical signals that could be sent across forests to the other side to warn of a fire. There's so much we've learned about plant and animal communication, for example, just alone in the last 20 years, to where the things that I thought I knew when I was young are turned on their head. We're in a totally different world now. And science is going to have a long road ahead to catch up with processing all of this, mostly because we don't know what to make of it. We know that there is a certain side of us that there's something bigger. Let's just leave it at that. You don't have to be religious. You don't have to be, even believe in any type of God. But just say that there's something bigger to why we're here that we as mere mortals don't understand. Whether it be an unfolding pattern or blueprint that was created by a conscious being, or whether it's something that is evolving on its own and evolving along with the universe, we just don't know and can't know. But when you get right down to it, when you've analyzed religion and science, and then you look down in your own heart, you find that quite often there's just something there that you can't explain. Something you can't put into words. Something that a wink and a nod is about the best you can do with people. I always remind myself that there's that little part of people, a little piece inside that is kind, compassionate, cares about people. Sure, we've got a very small percentage of people who are true psychopaths, but a majority of people are trained to be assholes. We have so much opportunity in our life to learn things the right way, and often we choose to fight, and we choose to argue rather than withdraw. We We choose hatred over love. We make bad decisions, and they fuck us over. We're only human. For some reason, our instinct doesn't work as well as the other animals, but that's a kind of a quagmire of its own, right? I mean, the consciousness that we possess as humans, we don't even understand it, and we can't understand it. And to think that we actually for so long separated ourselves from nature as if we were the pinnacle of creation, right? It's something I couldn't buy when I was young. It's like, okay, so we call ourselves the smartest beings, but what are we doing? What's the point in all this? And these are questions I asked myself as a kid, and unfortunately that my teenager is now asking me. It's like, what's the point? Basically, in a nutshell, the question all kids ask in the end is, why society? And it's a good question that really has no answer. I guess so I can get my coffee beans from South America shipped up to me in a nice little container, and then have my coffee grinder so I can grind them up and have this beautiful commercialized, globalized trade where everybody's treated equally and fairly and everybody's treated with respect. There's no way to even talk about social issues anymore without being labeled like left or right, or there's no way to talk about politics anymore without being labeled. And all of us are left to kind of like dance around with the very few things that we can actually still discuss. It seems like religion and belief in spirituality is one of those things that had its heyday back in 2010s. There was Aaron Ra and several others, a big atheist movement on YouTube. It was, big in my feed anyway. I mean, they were all over that shit. And I actually have a couple of videos of my own where I debated with, I only have two. One was with Jehovah's Witnesses, but I'm always kind to them. The other one was down on the corner when I met these people who were protesting the abortion clinic. And I had my GoPro and I went down and had a long conversation with them and I posted it. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But there was a point to it and I already forgot it. But the point being, I guess, religious content is not my thing. I have very strong opinions on beliefs, but I don't share them online very often because I don't want to offend other people's beliefs. Now, I know someone can make the argument, well, who cares about other people's beliefs? If they're strong enough to believe in something, then what you say shouldn't affect them. And that's true, I agree. But I also realize that no matter what a person believes, and this is speaking from my own personal experience and analysis as well, that nobody's quite sure of everything, but mostly nobody's quite sure of anything. I mean, it's not just a matter of whether atoms are all empty space or whether we're living in a simulation. It's a matter of how do you know what's real, Your brain processes the information that it's given. And this is what we call real, this world we live in right now. But to me, it's like I realize some folks get pulled away from that and they get sucked into kind of this other world of, the world could be like this. They have all these grandiose ideas. It's the hippie kind of thing, right? And when I was younger, I had really long hair and wore tie-dyes and skirts and barefoot and Birkenstocks and went to Dead shows. And not, the later years of Jerry. I'm not bragging. I only saw, I think 9 or 10 shows with Jerry Garcia before he died. But I started watching them in like 92 or 93, or listening in 92 or 93. And then he died in 95, so it was pretty much over. But in that time, I learned so much about people and that culture. Everything from, wow, there's a lot of really cool people out there, to, holy shit, there's some real slime balls embedded within that culture. And it took a couple decades to make sense and assimilate it all. Now that I'm almost 50, 30 years later, I guess. Actually, one of my best friends is down at a Dead show right now in Vegas. That's kind of irony. At the Sphere, they're doing a show right now. It's their first show last night. I have mixed feelings about all that too. But let's just say that people are people. We know that. And navigating this life is very difficult. Coffee grounds. And it's difficult if you get help. If you don't have help, things can get very confusing. And I know there are people out there who think their life is a mess. If I could just take that burden for a moment, I would. But all I can say is are words. It's all good. Everything will be okay in the end. It really will. We all end up in the same place. Okay? We forget that we're navigating this crazy maze in this spacey place, and we don't know where the hell we're going or what we're doing. We assign these little systems of how we should do things, what we think is important, what we think is true, and then we live by these rules. When a truth is found to be not true, then we just kind of change our truth to another truth. I mean, that's how science has operated for, hundreds of years, but also just it was a natural evolution of general human thinking, the way that we operate. Like, how does this work? Oh, God, I hit myself 3 times with the stick. 4th time, I'm not going to do this, And look where we're at, As I said, we've evolved to create all this vast wealth, and I guess I'm looking around at nature. Nature did that work, but the houses around me and, fences, we've fenced off our properties. We've set up our, long transmission lines along the freeways, and sent off these chunks of metal into space to probe it for us to see if there's another place we can reside after we destroy this one, or if we destroy this one, or if something destroys this one. And then there's an argument about not what to do to prepare for the apocalypse, but rather what kind of apocalypse and whether global warming is real. There's these stupid little arguments going on, everywhere, as we look around and just say, look, it's the Earth. We don't know what the fuck's going on. We can try to predict what might happen in 10 years, but it's always going to be something different. It's always going to change a little bit. We as humans desire a surety. We love consistency. We love to know that something is always there for us. We like to be able to wake up in the morning, watch the news, get the basics and the weather, and then go about our day. I think that's probably why that's the one thing I don't do in the morning. I never look at the news and the weather. I like to be surprised. And if something's important enough, it will come up and somebody will tell me about it. I've been doing that for a couple of years now, and it's much more peaceful existence than reading headlines. Cheers to that. To anybody else who's given up on media. However, I still have to do my hip vibe check to keep up with my youngsters, to make sure I know what words like bet mean, and, can get all the slang terms proper, and make sure I know my meme. I'm only half joking. When I was younger, because my wife, I was mentioning the word bet, I was like, I had to look it up to make sure I understand. She's like, what's that? Like, it's like cool, or, there's several different uses for the word, but was like, it's the same. She's like, oh God, the words these days. It's like, but we used rad. And she's like, yeah, but that was radical. And I was like, yeah, but radical was stolen from the word radical. And I started thinking about other words like dude and dork and nerd. And I was like, yeah, I guess every generation does come up with some pretty stupid words. Point being that it's our responsibility to keep up with them, because language changes. Oh, it does. It's an ever flowing thing. And that's funny, because I hear people argue semantics all the time, and it's like irrelevant. Like, don't ask a person based on what they're saying. Like, if they say a word and you think it means something else, all you have to do is just clarify, this is what I meant by this word. People want to argue about a word and what it means rather than the actual topic, so it's kind of another fallacy. It kind of sidetracks you from the actual topic to be able to say, oh, well, what a weird world we live in, right? And what a beautiful day out here. I should do a time lapse of these clouds. I used to have a big, huge blue spruce behind me, but it blew down in a storm, and I replaced it with this weeping cedar here. But I have this one in the front yard that's like, it's also a spruce. I think. Yeah, I think it's a spruce. I think they were both blue spruce. But it's losing its branches a little bit. I don't know why. Then over here we got this giant maple. That's in my neighbor's yard. I don't have the maple. It just drops its leaves in my pond. So, you just carry on now. You just carry on being people. And enjoy your day. You promise?